My girlfriend and I have been together for 5 years, both in our mid-20s. We met in college and have been living together for the last 3 years. About 6 months ago, we had to move fast and found a decent place in the city, a bit pricey, but manageable. Shortly after moving in, she met Jenna, our neighbor across the hall, who lives with her boyfriend Sam. Jenna and my girlfriend got along pretty quickly and even started texting here and there. Jenna was nice enough, but her boyfriend, Sam, gave me bad vibes from the start, arrogant and entitled, just not someone I'd ever want to hang out with. At first, my girlfriend didn't like him either. But over time, she seemed to warm up to him, and that's when we found out Sam and Jenna were in an open relationship. I didn't really care, as it wasn't my business. But what did bother me was Sam constantly checking out my girlfriend. I saw it more than once, and I noticed Jenna felt uncomfortable about it too. My girlfriend seemed oblivious until I pointed it out. About 2 months ago, we heard loud shouting from their apartment. My girlfriend wanted to check on them, so we did. Jenna stormed out, suitcase in hand, cursing Sam on her way out. For the next few weeks, things went quiet. My girlfriend texted Jenna to check in but never got a reply. Eventually, she ran into Sam in the hallway, and he told her they'd broken up because he'd cheated on Jenna. The next day, she went over to his place to see how he was doing. Ever since, they've been texting constantly. When I told her I was uncomfortable with how close they'd become, she said she just felt bad for him. I tried to brush it off, but something didn't sit right. I finally asked her 2 questions I probably shouldn't have: if she was attracted to him, and if she'd sleep with him if she had the chance. She dodged both questions, which only made me more uneasy. I ended up leaving our place and checking into a hotel to clear my head. Now I'm here, questioning everything, and wondering if I'm the one who messed up, or if she's the one crossing lines. Sitting alone in the hotel room, I kept replaying our conversation. Every time I thought about her hesitation to answer, it felt like a red flag waving right in my face. I started questioning everything: how we went from being a happy, solid couple to me feeling like I was just watching her drift further away. When I asked her if she was attracted to Sam, I had expected her to immediately shut it down. Instead, she said it was unfair of me to even ask, and that everyone is allowed to find other people attractive. Sure, but this was different. This wasn't a random stranger. This was a guy we both knew, a guy who'd been openly checking her out. The fact that she couldn't just say no was a punch in the gut. The next question, if she'd sleep with him, guilt-free, was even worse. Again, she dodged it, saying it was unfair because I'd just get upset no matter what. Her non-answer told me more than if she'd just come out with a straight yes. After that, I reached a breaking point. She tried to tell me they were just friends, but the way she hesitated when I asked to see her phone spoke volumes. I decided to leave, needing space and clarity. Now, I'm here, trying to figure out what this means for us. In the days that followed, I thought about what might be happening. Was she really comforting him because she felt bad, or was there something more? I decided to reach out to Jenna. I had to know if there was more to Sam's story. With help from my sister, I found Jenna's social media, and after some hesitation, I sent her a message. To my surprise, she responded. Jenna was blunt. She told me that her and Sam's open relationship was mostly one-sided, he was the one pushing for it, and she'd reluctantly agreed. They'd had a rough patch for a long time, and she'd started putting boundaries in place. She even mentioned that after our first dinner with them, she specifically told Sam my girlfriend was off limits. But that hadn't stopped him. She said she eventually caught them kissing, and that was the last straw. That was the reason she packed up and left. She apologized for not telling me sooner but said she just wanted to move on from Sam and their toxic relationship. That kiss hit me like a punch to the gut. I realized that what I had been feeling wasn't paranoia, it was a gut instinct telling me something was very wrong. It was too late to go back and change anything, but at least I finally had some clarity. My girlfriend had kept this from me and had been hanging out with him since, acting like nothing had happened. After talking to Jenna, I decided to go back to the apartment and see where things stood with my girlfriend. I got back late that night and found the place empty. I didn't feel as shocked as I thought I would, just a sad confirmation of what I'd already suspected. I put my things down, took a deep breath, and went straight to Sam's apartment. When he opened the door, I could immediately see my girlfriend in the background, wearing just a t-shirt and underwear. Sam looked smug, but I didn't care. I asked her if we could talk alone. She hesitated, looking at him as if for permission, which was answer enough for me. I pushed past him into the apartment and looked her straight in the eye. I told her I knew about the kiss, that Jenna had filled me in on everything. Sam tried to brush it off, saying that Jenna was just bitter, and my girlfriend jumped in, claiming it was just a kiss. She insisted it meant nothing, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. But if it meant nothing, why hide it? Why let me sit there, doubting myself, while she spent time with him behind my back? I asked her how long it took after I left for her to show up at his door. She avoided my eyes, muttering something about needing comfort because she felt like I had abandoned her in relationship limbo. That was all I needed to hear. I told her I was done, that I'd be moving back home and letting our landlord know I wanted out of the lease. She looked stunned, saying she couldn't afford the place on her own. I told her that was her problem now. On my way back to the apartment, I felt an odd mix of anger, sadness, and relief. The next day, I called my sister, who was already on her way to help me pack up and move. Staying in that apartment another night wasn't ideal, knowing she was across the hall. But I had no choice, so I focused on packing and preparing to leave this entire mess behind. That night, lying on the floor of my half-packed apartment, I finally started to process everything. Our relationship hadn't been perfect, no relationship is, but I never thought we'd end up here. This wasn't just a miscommunication or a simple mistake. She had made choices that crossed every boundary we'd set as a couple. And the worst part was, even after getting caught, she tried to downplay it, as if it didn't matter. As I lay there, I thought about the future, about moving on from all this. I knew it would be hard, that the betrayal would stay with me for a while. But I also knew I'd be better off. I was done trying to hold on to something that was already gone. The next day, I focused on packing and preparing to leave. Every item I put into a box felt like a small piece of closure, a step toward finally moving on. By evening, I had most of my things packed. I'd planned to stay one more night to avoid any encounters with her, but she showed up anyway, looking for a conversation. She asked if we could talk, claiming she didn't want things to end like this. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We sat on opposite sides of the room, the tension between us heavy. She started by saying she regretted everything that had happened with Sam, but insisted it was just a moment of weakness. She admitted to being caught up in the attention he gave her after his breakup and claimed that she'd never meant to hurt me. I could tell she was struggling to explain herself, and for a moment, I saw the person I thought I'd known all these years. But then I remembered the lies, the hiding, the way she had defended him and dodged my questions. And any sympathy I felt started to fade. I asked her why she hadn't told me about the kiss when it happened. She hesitated, then admitted she was afraid of how I'd react and didn't want to lose me. I shook my head, frustrated. She was saying she'd hidden it to protect me, but all it had done was hurt me more. I told her that if she'd been honest from the beginning, we might have had a chance to work through it. But now, after all the lies, I didn't see how we could rebuild any kind of trust. Then, I finally confronted her about the night I left and asked her, bluntly, if she'd spent it with Sam. She looked away, and her silence told me everything. She tried to brush it off, saying she'd only gone over there to talk because she was confused and didn't know if I was coming back. But I couldn't shake the image of her standing in Sam's apartment, looking to him for validation instead of to me. She tried to explain that my leaving had pushed her into his arms, but it felt like she was just making excuses. I was done listening. I told her it was over and that I'd be moving out completely by the end of the week. She begged me to reconsider, saying we'd been through too much together to just end things like this. She promised to cut off all contact with Sam, to do whatever it took to fix things, but I could tell it was more about her guilt than a real commitment to change. She asked if there was any chance I'd give her another shot, and I told her honestly, I don't trust her, and I don't know if I ever will. She got upset, saying I was overreacting to one mistake and that I wasn't giving her a fair chance to explain. But at this point, I didn't feel like I owed her anything. I told her that a mistake would have been telling me about the kiss right away, not continuing to see him behind my back, hiding it, and defending him. It wasn't just one moment of weakness, it was a string of choices that showed a complete lack of respect for our relationship. As she sat there, clearly struggling with my response, I realized how different we'd become. I wasn't the same person I'd been when we first met. And maybe neither was she. Somewhere along the way, we'd lost the connection that had kept us together. I told her that this wasn't the life I wanted, that I wanted a relationship built on trust and honesty, and that she had shattered that. When I finished, she just sat there, silent. For once, there was no defense, no justification. I think she realized there was nothing left to say. She quietly gathered her things, and as she left, I felt a strange sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted. It hurt, but it also felt like the first step toward finally moving forward. After she left, I went back to packing. The silence in the apartment was heavy, but this time, it felt like closure. I knew I'd made the right decision. I was leaving behind a relationship that had become toxic, where trust had been broken beyond repair. It wasn't how I'd imagined things would end, but in a way, I felt grateful. I'd learned something valuable about myself and what I needed in a relationship. The next day, I finalized the arrangements with the landlord, transferring the lease fully to her. It would be up to her to handle it from there. I packed the last of my things, and with one final look at the place we'd once called home, I closed the door and left. Leaving the apartment for the last time, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. This place had been filled with memories, both good and bad. But in the end, it was time to move on. My sister met me the next day to help with the final move. Seeing her reminded me of the support I still had, and I felt grateful knowing I didn't have to go through this alone. Back at my sister's place, I took time to process everything that had happened. It was painful, but I felt more at peace than I had in weeks. I realized that holding on to a broken relationship out of habit or guilt would only hurt me more in the long run. Trust is everything in a relationship, and once it's gone, rebuilding it takes more than empty promises. I needed a fresh start, even if it meant facing the uncertainty of being on my own. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I poured my energy into work, reconnected with old friends, and even started therapy to make sense of everything. Slowly, I felt myself healing, rediscovering who I was outside of the relationship. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm determined to create a life rooted in trust, honesty, and self-respect. It might be a long road, but I know I'm moving in the right direction. And if nothing else, I'm grateful for the lessons this experience taught me. And if you found this story helpful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and take care.